Hey up! Not seen you here for a while. You been keeping well, I trust? Aye, aye. Good. Good, very good. Must say though, you be looking slightly nesh. Got a bit of a shiver on, if you don't mind me saying. Oh, what's that? Boiler's on the blink. Long story, is it? Well, here, let me pour you something to warm the bones, and you can tell me all about it. How special, I presume? There you go. Get that down you. So what happened then? So the red light came on, did it? Right. And you call your landlord? Right. And he said not to touch it? And he'd send someone round post haste? Right. And I'm guessing, by your current state of vexation, you decided to take matters into your own hands anyway. Thought so. And I'm guessing it didn't help. Right. Thought not. And now you got no eating, no hot water, and you're boiling water to have a wash. Standard. Oh, and the boiler's shagged, is it? And you're footing the bill. Oh well, these things happen, I suppose. Good job I got a fire going, ain't it? Here, have another sup on your pint. It'll make you feel better. Speaking of things that best be let be, had this bloke in the other day. A semi-regular, comes in every so often, about once a month. James Seaber his name. Doubt you would have had much in the way of interaction with him. Not the most sociable sort. Generally sits up in yonder corner, nursing a pint, reading the Telegraph. Before t'other day, I'd only ever really exchanged rather curt pleasantries with him. Hence why I was surprised when he decided to, open up, shall we say. It were a quiet afternoon. I'd not long opened up. I'd had a few punters in, on their lunches. Not much right home about. That's when James comes in, orders a pint, and to my surprise, took up a seat by the bar. Strange, I thought, but, given everything with the pandemic and whatnot, I thought maybe he's just wanting for company, bit of human contact. But as usual, our exchange was rather clipped. He took a sip of his pint and made no indication that he were in any way in the mood for conversation. So I just cracked on with the usual chores, pausing only to pour him another pint. Seems he had quite the thirst. But I left him to it. Carried on with my work. Went down to the cellar, changed up one of the barrels that were running empty, and come back up to the bar. I noticed James had finished his second pint, but somewhat bizarrely, he was just sitting there, staring somewhat worriedly at a small oblong-shaped box that he'd placed in front of him on the bar. It were quite a pretty thing, actually. Fashioned from polished black wood. You could almost see your face in it, like. Anyway, noticing he were empty, I says, "Here, another pint, James." At that he started. Seemed woken, as if from a dream. Yes, I think I shall, actually. I could tell by the tone of his voice somewhat were up, but I didn't want to press him. Our inner thoughts are sacred, after all. So I pours him his pint. He didn't seem to notice. Just sat there, once again transfixed by that black box. Well, I don't run a charity, do I? That'll be $3.20, James. That seemed to shake him from his reverie. Yes. Sorry, Jack. I think I quite forgot where I was then. Don't you mither, mate. We all done it. He handed over his fiver. I got his change. And once again noticing that he were ogling that black box, I said, "Here, what you got there then? You seem quite taken with it, if I do say so." He shot me a somewhat worried glance. Spectacles. Old spectacles, dating from around the mid-18th century. "Oh, aye, you don't say. How did you come by them then?" "They were my late uncle's. He died recently and I've been handling his estate. He was something of a purveyor of strange objects of an esoteric nature. He acquired these from a dealer in Toledo, of all places. From what I have read from my uncle's notes on these spectacles, the dealer wanted rid of them rather sharpish. Duly, my uncle purchased them for a song. I was going to auction them off, but knowing what I know now, I feel that would not be the most responsible course of action." "Well, that piqued my curiosity, did that. Mind if I have a gander?" James considered this for a moment. "If you wish. I implore you, though, take care." He opened the box and slid it over. I must say the spectacles were quite remarkable in their strangeness. They seemed overlarge, a bit cumbersome. The frame and the arms were fashioned from what looked to be some kind of polished ivory. On the nose bridge, I could just about make out a faded inscription in Latin: "Vidibis, thou shalt see." Interesting, I thought. But even stranger were the lenses. Jam jar thick, circles of what I surmised was small quartz of limited transparency. Curious to the efficacy of these spectacles, I took them from the case and held them up to my eyes. At that, James screeched out, No, don't! Give them back!" At that he snatched them from me, put them back in the case, snapped the lid shut, and thrust them back into his coat pocket. "All right, mate, calm down. I was just looking." You don't understand," There are risks. Risks. Yes, risks. Oh, really? I'm all ears, James. Please, enlighten me. He let out a sigh. As I told you, these spectacles came into my uncle's possession by way of a dealer from Toledo, who himself had acquired them from the collection of some recently deceased Spanish aristocrat, a one Diego Alvarez. From what I have read, he had quite the reputation, rumoured to be a man of dark eccentricities, obsessed with the occult, in particular the works of Saint Cyprian of Antioch, that fabled patron saint of conjurers, witches and necromancers. Of course, I thought this was all hokum. I mean, who wouldn't? Anyway, I came across the spectacles whilst going through my uncle's effects. They had been secreted away in a lockbox that my uncle had seemingly hidden behind a bookcase in his study. Along with them, a number of old documents and manuscripts, some of which I must confess were barely legible to my eyes, scrawled with strange symbols and markings. I remember finding it rather strange that my uncle would have so concealed such a recent acquisition. However, it would soon become dauntingly clear why he had done so. I persevered with the spectacles' accompanying documents, most of which concerned their application. That being to bestow upon the wearer the ability to comprehend the world that runs parallel with our own, and therein converse with the dwellers in that place. What one of the documents referred to as the Neverborn of the Liminal. Of course, this was all nonsense to me, the stuff of fairy tales. Yet, I cannot say that I was not intrigued, and I carried on reading. That was when I came across a hastily scrawled letter written in my uncle's hand. It read, "Under no circumstances should one apply the oculi of Cyprian without the requisite precautions laid down in document B3. These must be followed to the letter, lest the wearer damn themselves to the same madness I have suffered. Though I am not a man given to the destruction of the treasures of antiquity, I would advise any who come upon these vile artifacts that they dispose of them at the first available opportunity, for nothing good can come of them." Would that I had taken heed of my uncle's warning, but like a fool, possessed by the most morbid curiosity, I began rifling through the papers until I found the prescribed document, a piece of mouldering old parchment, the text faded, practically illegible. It was written in Latin, the only portion of which I could decipher a short sentence at the bottom of the page that read, "Apply the oculi and speak the words Ividibo, Ividibis, and thou shalt see." Alas, so I did, in spite of the warning and any better judgment I possessed. I put on the spectacles and spoke the words Ividibo, Vidibis. Nothing happened at first. My vision, utterly obscured by the misty smoke quartz lenses. But then, The mist of the quartz seemed to shift, dissipating as if cleared by some unfelt wind. I cannot describe with any degree of accuracy the sight that met my eyes. I found myself no longer in my uncle's study, but in a place of weird geometry, a strange dreamscape that seemed an amalgamation of all places and times, all stacked one upon the other. A roiling tempest of formless, half-recognisable structures that seemed to collapse and reform on a whim. Amongst this pandemonium, I saw figures drifting between the shadows, shapeless beings, susceptible to change as the tortured landscape, both terrifying and meek all at once. To my mind, formed of whispering mouths and weeping eyes. Their voices spoke as one, discordant yet at the same time unified. Their words were lies, truths and secrets, a deafening cacophony of knowledge and ignorance. They told me things of myself not even I knew, or at least things I had long suppressed. My highest aspirations and darkest desires. I could not bear it. Such was the glut of stimulus that now assailed my senses. I reached up to tear the spectacles from my face, but to no avail. Before my very eyes, my hands seemed to shift and shimmer. There, then not there. It was all too much. Something in me seemed to snap, and then the world imploded. Then there was darkness, and the slowly fading whispers of the never-born. When I came to, it was dark. The world, no longer the same, less real. What is real, though, I ask you? A moment of silence fell between us then. He gazed down at his pint. Then with what seemed like a flash of clarity, he downed his pint in one, and without a word, got up and walked out. Not seen him since, but like I say, he's only a semi-regular. I'm sure he's fine, though I have to wonder. You see, I got this coroner mate, and I remember him telling me something a few weeks back, that he had a body come in that stuck in his mind as being a bit off. Gave him quite the fright when he pulled back the zip, apparently. As you can imagine, he's seen all sorts, but this one body rattled him. A gent in his late 70s, early 80s. Cause of death, heart failure. Not unusual for a man that age. But what was unusual was this. The utter rictus of terror written up on the corpse's face, and the fact it had no eyes. Now I know what you're thinking. Surely my mate's seen a lot worse. Murders, suicides, traffic accidents. Well, you'd be right. But it weren't the physical state of the body that unnerved him. No. You see, when he were inspecting the cold, empty sockets, he saw something. No, not saw. That's not the right word. Perceived, shall we say. Something eldritch, oppressive, They seemed to slither in the black where the eye should have been, there and gone in an instant. Won't long forget that, Mr. Zebra Jack, my coroner mate said to me. Something weren't quite right about that one. Aye, Mr. Zebra, James's uncle. Well, that got me intrigued, and 'cause I'm a nosy parker with too much time on my hands, I decided to track down that dealer in Toledo, see what he knew about his past acquisition, by which I mean them damn specs. Well, he weren't exactly forthcoming, put it that way. Didn't like the glasses, see. Didn't like talking about them. Reckoned they were cursed. Would bring naught but misfortune on any who possessed them. Like they had their previous owner, Diego Alvarez. I asked him what he meant by that. He answered simply, "Lo encontraron, señor Hoss." They found him with no eyes. Of course, I'm sure it's just a strange coincidence. Though I reckon there's something to be said of heeding warnings and not going meddling in things you know nought about. Like your boiler, for instance, eh? Anyway, I best crack on. Them barrels won't change themselves. You know where I am if you need out. Just ring that there bell and give us a thumbs up, eh? Have a good one. I'll be seeing ya.